Hi there. Thank you for downloading, listening to, and watching the Lean Into Artcast. This is a show where two visual storytellers get together and take a walk around various topics that tend to cross one's path when one has committed themselves to this endeavor of communicating with images. We think hard about this stuff, so you will too. My name is Jerzy Drozd. I'm a cartoonist and teaching artist, and the other host is named.
Hi, I'm Rob Stenzinger, and I'm a user experience designer and game developer, interactive maker of stuff. How you doing, Jerzy?
Doing okay. Recovering after an intense weekend of Cartoon Crossroads Columbus, which I'm sure at various points we will discuss that experience. My opinions are my own and blah, 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 blah. But yeah, I'm still kind of in recovery mode. But in my, I went dark for a couple days right after the show, and in my sort of rebooting, defragmenting period, I came across what was a topic I thought a topic-worthy topic, or lean into art-worthy topic, which was I went for a walk in the woods, Rob. Where's my Chrome? There we go. And shame on me, having lived in Ohio for a year and a half now, but like for a long time having like a real sort of assumption, an uninformed assumption about Ohio as a state, is that I was judging it purely on the US 23 highway that I've often taken to go through Ohio to other states, which is like pretty flat and like farmlands. But my goodness, is this state rich with a lot of really cool parkland. And I was walking through this park with my wife, and you could see like the rock formations with all these trees, like their roots are snaking down in between, and like the trees are holding on to the rock surfaces, right? You could see that. And I was like, gosh darn it, like this is like something that would be really worth drawing, just to like see, like make up some alien landscapes with this kind of thing. So, Ann and I sat down and I just sketched for the first time, and then I did the math. I was like, oh my gosh, it's been a month since I've drawn anything for my own purpose, and I felt like it recharged me to the point where I went from feeling like I was dragging, like shoulders slumped and like hunched over, to like standing up straight, like, oh my gosh, that's why I do this stuff. Oh, that's what it's like to be alive. And so I came to you and I was like, maybe we should talk about drawing for ourselves. Why are you laughing?
It's why does this even happen? And I'm glad to talk about it because I've gone through that. I feel that so deeply, right? That situation where reconnecting with something that's so energizing, but yet, it's part of what you do to get paid, or it gets shuffled and prioritized, and like reconnecting with it because of that initial personal meaningful thing. It's wild how good it feels. And I just, I mean, as soon as you texted that as a topic, I'm like, well, yeah, it's not, obviously we should talk about this.
Yeah. So we established our topic, yes, and if I were to complete what I think is a completion of my thought on framing this up, is that I have been doing other drawing, but it's drawing that is for other jobs, right? I don't know if anybody saw over CXC weekend when Ann and I were decorating a White Castle crave case as part of our agreement with White Castle, and they became a sponsor of CXC. So like, did a lot of drawing and it was fun, but it was for a purpose that came from the outside. It was extrinsically motivating rather than intrinsically motivating. When I was drawing my sketchbook, this little alien landscape thing, I was like, I don't need to show this to anybody. I'm just drawing for me. And that's what felt so good. And that's what I want to like pick at a little bit for an hour with you. If you will go along with me for the ride, Rob.
I'm in at this point.
He's not only in, everybody. He wrote the notes for this one, by the way. So like I'm like being a little bit facetious when I say come along with me. I'm going along with Rob, really.
That's cool. I'm like, hey, this is a new format idea. It's almost like a quick judgment Or what are we going to do? This is like when when your game facilitator, dungeon master works super hard and is like, oh, I know how you're going to, not that I work that hard on the show notes, but I'm like, oh, I can't wait to put this character in this situation. And then they're like, yeah, we're totally doing that. We just made up something else. We're going to go like fix our cart and throw it off a cliff.
And my character,
just because we want to.
Yeah, and my character's gonna go buy shoes. Is that okay? He's gonna go buy shoes that are going on the dungeon crawl.
So this is I think this is an interesting possibility for the show where it's like, you know what, or not, boom, here we go. We're the misbehaving party.
That could be a fun new little bit of spice to add to something that is 329 episodes old. But with that said, we'll put that on the table and now we're in the episode. For those who are listening to the audio, you just missed me and Rob dancing. This is our way of saying that we are now fully into the body of the show. So let's talk about it. When you make stuff for yourself, when you make I don't know, where do you want to start?
Well, like the bigness is sort of a path distinction for me, where it's like, sitting down to draw something for myself is pretty natural and spins up into something bigger pretty easily, unless I, watch myself, because, the excitement I get, I start to find other uses. It's like, even when you were describing the, like, feeling a moment of sort of, aesthetic connection and appreciation and a rest for those tree patterns, and the natural follow-up to go into sketching, it takes you somewhere else. Then it's like the door gets flung open. You're like, I'm just going there because I feel like going there.
Yeah. And
then all of a sudden, now you're going there, you're kind of making something, and all of a sudden, does it get bigger? Right. So I'm curious, even though you have permission to keep it small, and like in this first part of the show, I don't know if it might make sense to focus on that kind of thing, where it is sort of there's no pressure after the idea to make something because you feel like it, to then do something else with it. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, what's that like for you? Do you have a big catalog of that kind of stuff? Does it sit in what happens?
Yeah,
Where
well,
does it go?
I mean, I do. I have a whole bunch of sketchbooks, but yes, as I think you correctly anticipated, is that a lot of my sketching in my sketchbooks is development of ideas for future projects. There's an intention. I'm exploring purposefully to find treasure rather than just playing in the sand, right? There's a difference between sifting for gold and just playing in the sand. And if I were to characterize the difference, is that, how do I describe this? I don't want to be frou-frou, but there's something about connecting a drawing tool to a piece of paper and just the actual physical experience of moving the pen around, that automatically, and I can't speak to whether this is like because I have so much experience doing it, like a life experience of doing this over and over again, and I'm bringing that feeling to it, but there's something that feels relaxing about that. It feels relaxing, and it feels like there's something relaxing about playing with your imagination in a non-performative way. Does that make sense? Like, when I'm sketching in my sketchbook for the purpose of developing ideas to turn to a story, there is, oh gosh, it just makes me think of. I'm going to come back to this a thousand times, Rob, and I'm sorry, I'm doing my intellectual tumbling. That I think I'm going to put a trademark on and make a T-shirt out of that.
That's really good, actually.
But like, it's like that idea in Zen of like acting without expectation, right? Because the moment you think about victory, you automatically have to consider defeat. The moment you think I'm turning this into something, you have to think about what it can't be. And playing with it without expectation removes both of those things. The idea of perfection falls off and the idea of failure falls off. And then it becomes just you and the paper, and it actually, feels like relaxing and invigorating at the same time. It's like plugging in the phone and watching that green battery thing grow,
And I don't know when does that even become a thing, right? Because I remember I have pretty early memories of starting to really like to draw and finding that that is a worthy place to spend time, no matter what. Is it that and this isn't a psychology podcast or what have you, but there's probably some kind of formative experience stuff where it's like, this is inherently nourishing somehow.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's also pretty useful, but it's also like, it's useful outside of you and it's useful inside of you. Is part of what I'm hearing. And I don't know if I have an interesting distinction here, but you're describing maybe the mechanics of it that connect so much, right? So meaningfully. But then there's or is it different when it's the mechanics have to be on a mission, right? So mechanics versus mission, where I need to hunt for an idea to develop, to bring through a creative cycle to get it to be strong enough to do a job, right? These characters need to work well individually and together, and you're solving problems, right? Yeah. Versus not solving problems, not even knowing why necessarily, other than it feels right.
Yeah. Like operating out of intuition, that's part of it. I would also say operating out of a sense of when you swing on a swing in a playground, it's not to show anybody how good you are at swinging, right?
Well, not anymore.
That's true. I take it back. Because when you're in 5th grade, that's kind of an important thing. Let's see who can get parallel with the top bar. Yeah. But I mean, like, I just think about like that kind of thing. Like there's something about like, because as a kid who grew up in a very rural place where I lived right across the street from our playground. So in the summertime when school was out, I would just go to the playground and just play on the equipment. Right. And like, there was nobody to see what I was doing. I was really just in my own space doing that. I think there's something like that in when I'm drawing in my sketchbook without the intent to do anything with it. Or again, there's a difference between intent to do something with it and doing something with it. Like something may come out of it, but that's not the point, right? Rachel Ross is watching us on Twitch and says this is the difference between quote unquote sketchbooks for myself to noodle around in and quote unquote I will show everyone this great sketchbook full of finished art. I think that second statement is what stymies a lot of beginning artists too. Is this idea that like Ben Hatke was talking about this recently in a talk about sketchbooks. Is like if the book is too nice, he feels like nervous about drawing in it because he's got to make the drawings as nice as the book is.
That was really cool. Yeah, the CXC was awesome. I watched a good bit of it, and we caught that one as a family. Pretty cool. That pressure though, and there's some the mission changes stuff, and I see like all of us artists have a different relationship. Our own personal way of looking at the finding a purpose for what we make and navigating the stages of development toward purpose and sharing it and stuff. And like, lots of some folks are really comfortable with it and really, really groove on like, I want to combine, the logical thinking and analysis with the intuition and feeling things out, and just like skill that I've accreted over the years, and like somehow that feels really whole and great. And others are more like, that logic can take a hike for a while, and it's such a trap, right? Where because it's not just it as a mechanism, but it sort of locks you in more than other possibilities that could be totally surrounding it. That just because you're doing your job, you're going to finish it, you will be avoiding that potential and discovery. And like teaching styles, like I've been reading a bit of Linda Berry's books this year, and her teaching style is very much toward helping you find and discover and feel comfort in that intuitive space. And that's which I inherently think like practicing that is a thing too. Mm-hmm. Saying like, you know what? I noticed the fact that my heart rate drops when I sketch. I should sketch more. And just that being enough intention, it seems useful, right? Mm-hmm. But it doesn't seem to be violating a contract of, like if there's a intuition bouncer and the sweet magical club of infinite art, and you're like about to walk in, they're like, whoa, buddy, you have a goal. Stop. And I don't feel like if you just have a couple, if you're like, it's a small goal, it's not going to hurt anything, anyway. Yeah. I'm reminded to when I carry a pen and my notepad everywhere. And I tried to get into a concert a couple years back, and they were like, nope. I'm like, it's, seriously, it's a Copic pen. What am I going to do with this? Nope. I'm like, anyway, so that's the character. Anyway, a lot of thoughts there. What do you think? Is it okay to have a little bit of goal when you wander into this?
Why not? Well, I mean, like the moment I saw those branches, I was like, that would make a cool LIA landscape, which will probably be of some use in some future book. But for now, let's play, right?
Just what you described, I think it's saying that you're not looking to airtight connect one step to the next, right? Mm-hmm. This action probably goes somewhere, and that probably leads to something. And so if that's good enough, you're welcome into the club.
There's a line in Peter S. Beagle's The Last Unicorn, which is a fabulous book. I love that. One of my favorite fantasy books. And it says something about like this butterflies explaining like how unicorns work. And they said they're generally only visible to people who search and trust. And that line hit me pretty hard as a young person. I couldn't figure out why, but as I've grown older, I think about that as like, that's kind of what an artist's job is to do, is to search and trust. Trusting that the connections and the patterns will reveal themselves with enough exploration/investigation. On Sunday, I interviewed a documentary filmmaker as part of the CXC programming. And one of the things that we were talking about was how he landed on the narrative that he landed on about this narrative about how Beetle Bailey comics are made. And I asked whether this was something, did you walk in with like a construction of like, okay, let's say you're going to make a comic strip and it's going to be about this, and let's watch you make a comic strip about this. He said, no. It was just me doing a lot of filming, and I was watching for things that like sort of reflected bigger ideas about the comic strip. And then we had to tie it all together in editing. I said, so your job then, like if you were to describe your skill, it would be being attentive and open. Right? Like that's the primary skill of the documentarian storyteller. Yes, knowing how to use computers is nice too. Knowing how to set up shots and what to show and what not to show, that all counts. That's all important. But like the primary, like the fulcrum point of doing this is trusting and being open and being paying really close attention. Right? So,
and I'd say in that neighborhood of just being open and seeing what happens, that's sort of this is like the playground that you lived across the street, right? For me in creative challenges over the years, where I'm like, you know what, more play is better than less. And just saying, I'm going to commit to every single day this week, I'm going to go to the playground. And that's what, creative challenges typically are for me. But yet that is very different. Like, so what you're describing, it's like that walk in the woods, the going to the playground and all that kind of stuff. Because my output for creative challenges, it's pretty mixed, pretty extremely mixed. Like I did the unblocking project for an entire year, published a drawing. I've done 24-hour comic day in different ways. Back in the day, Inktober, now there's a lot of Tobers, right? And so what do you think of that? Is this way of thinking, does it lead up to like a structured commitment, like a creative challenge, or is it like, does that going too formal?
Oh, I don't know. Well, one, it sounds like Rob is very gently pushing me towards that giant word prescription. He's like, let's see if I can trick him. We switched his regular coffee with Taster's Choice. We'll see if he can tell the difference. I would never tell anybody that like, oh, this doesn't apply. But I do feel like there is. Okay, let me say this. I'm going to say I'm super busted when it comes to taking the structure of the challenge and trying to run even further with it, right? You've pointed this out repeatedly. The last, I would say, 4 years of me encountering the October drawing challenge has been just that.
And my attempt with today's explore prompt and exploring and asking you this is to try to go to different territory, because we have covered that a ton.
We have. So
but I think how you teed up this topic really it describes the thing that I've done, where it's it's been the playground. It hasn't been that productive other than the experience, and sometimes raw material for other stuff.
Yep. So yeah, I would say that there's no reason why, because play can be structured. You're talking to a baseball fan. Baseball has a structure, and that's part of what makes the game fun. It's still totally unpredictable, and it's still all about anticipation, and that's why I love it. But without that structure, there'd be no anticipation. So, part of the tension that the structure creates, when applied properly or when approached properly with the right spirit, I would say right spirit in the sense that not harmful to you, right? Because if I go into a baseball game going if we don't win, I just don't know how I'm going to get up tomorrow. If we don't win, life's not worth living. If we don't win, I'm going to get a divorce. It's like if I walk in with that kind of intensity, man, the play isn't very fun anymore. But if you walk
I tell my kids sometimes when they come up with an example that extreme, I'm like, that's excellent for a story, but let's do something else with our day, though.
That's good. So when I go to a baseball game, it's like, of course I want to watch the Clippers win. That's fun. But if they don't win, it's like, cool. Well, now, it's like I saw them all try their best, and I have a reason to go tomorrow to see if they win next time, So anyway, I think totally drawing for yourself within a sort of exterior structure can create all sorts of new lively tensions with it, provided that you remember that you're here to play. So yeah,
that's the spice for me with the creative challenges, where they're not the same playground, because I'm different when I come back to it, even if when I revisit the same challenge, and there's always maybe focusing on different things that I feel like focusing on, maybe sometimes having an intention, right? Mm-hmm. Where it's like I brought a new piece of equipment with me on one creative challenge, where it's like I wasn't it totally trying to learn Manga Studio during 24-hour comic day wasn't like a great plan for productivity, but it was a good learning experience. And
can I underline that 6 times is that's something that's so you model this. I just don't want to skip over the story, because the modeling that you do when you tell that story, and the modeling you did by approaching it that way, is something that I wish more artists had the comfort to do. Something that Ann and I have been kind of kicking around a lot as a general topic is when did we become so afraid to fail in front of people? And I know that's been a problem for a long time. This isn't a modern problem, but it's failing in front of people means that you are learning a new way of doing something, and hopefully making more people aware that like that nobody shows up with answers. Everybody like the right way to show up is with like solutions to or the intent to solve problems, right? Like nobody walked into mission control at NASA going like, here's how you get to the moon, everybody. It's 3 steps. I got it written on a piece of paper right here. Yeah, I've always known this, you know.
What's super fun is there are personalities in a lot of different businesses and creative teams and stuff where you get the person who just in their essence and psychological social makeup and stuff, they have to do that. They need to provide the prescription, and they're like, no matter what, this is the thing. The person in the band who says, this is the song that we're doing, or I quit, or I'm, you know, and I think all of us want to fall for that, I think, right? Because ambiguity is pretty great, but like, because of discovery and mystery, and you come out the other side, but in a way, you know, the facing change on that level is a skill, and to get comfortable with that much ambiguity is even if you're practiced at it, it's a contextual thing. It's like it's a mindset that isn't always accessible.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you have the promise of, you know, concrete action, reaction, results, outcomes, what have you. Sounds kind of great sometimes. Some days I'm tired, right? And I don't want the ambiguity, but anyway, I wonder, like, collectively, when we face so much, when we get fatigue, we don't gravitate toward the ambiguity. We don't gravitate toward the trust and the space and the comfort to be uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because in a way it's like it reminds me of the hierarchy of needs, right? If depending on where you are at and your neurological makeup and all these kinds of things, then and then you individually and us collectively, right? So this is 2020 is not the most awesome year for going to the playground, you know?
Yeah, you're right. You were absolutely right. That's an important layer to add on to this too.
And I say that, and I want to counter it. I want I hope and I wish for everybody to find some kind of space to do this kind of exploration and play and feel nourishment from it. If even if it feels a little bit surprising or not great at first. And I guess if folks have, you know, want us to dig deeper in the future on this, we could think of ways to take steps and dabble.
Yeah.
Takes, you know, do small commitments to get comfortable, to you know, to just mess around and play longer. And because fail, it's so funny because one of my deep feel stories about failure is I started a business with a few like-minded friends when in my early 20s, and it was, you know, to make a video game, and we all had different talents and stuff, and it was like a garage band of sorts too, but the topic wasn't music, it was making games. We all were getting skills and what have you, and the game evolved, and you know, we ended up making a prototype. We ended up making like a prototype that was a click-through interactive thing, and it was super rough, super not polished, and not even fully representative of the thing, but like of the design. And there was so much unfinished, but yet us as individuals, we learned more about collaboration. We learned more about, you know, creating interactive things. We learned a lot about, applied computer skills and stuff. And along the way, some coding, some web, which was new at the time. And so all of us ended up, first we started a second business to then make web stuff and interactive things for people. But the game failed, right? And so in talking with one of my dearest friends, we disagreed for at least 10 years or more on this topic. And it would make my blood boil every time. And his stance was, it was a failure and you should feel it and taste that it failed. Right. And I'm like, no way. Flipping table, flip. How many tables? Flip them all. Flip every table because it didn't fail. Look at where where we've gone since then. It's been part of our path to do this thing. And like I was literally nothing wrong with this, but I was a janitor looking for like, what am I going to do next? Right. And then I had a career in technology. So, fail that, whatever. And but it was this deep thing where failure is a hard thing to sit with. Then eventually I came to, what's super funny is that I thought after a while, dang it, he's right. He's right. I'm the one who's uncomfortable with failure. This sucks. This hurts. Why? And then because I'm like, we did fail. But what's so bad about that?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's the part. To quote you from an earlier episode, we're in a room with failure. Everybody look over there. There's failure. Don't look at it. Don't look at it.
Yeah.
So anyway,
I don't know.
I'm glad we
kind of a tangent, but
I mean, I think this is part of this. Also goes back to when we were talking with Brandon Dayton about sketchbook summary. He said your sketchbook is where you should be failing, right? Because the failure means that you're trying to grow beyond what your current skill set is, and when you do that, you are inevitably going to fail. So therefore, he was recontextualizing failure as a sign of potential growth. So anyway, I mean, I'm glad.
One could say it's development, right?
Yeah.
So it's the observer who gets to put the description, the definition, and the feeling about that, the story around it. If you're fine with saying failure, what have you, or you're saying that failure is a component of development and growth, okay. Or if you just rather emphasize that this sketchbook or these broken apps or these unfinished whatever the explorations that it's part of me now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's development.
So how about we take a break and let's spend like 15 minutes on the second section, which is, what are we going to talk about in the second section?
Okay, so making a sketch for yourself. Maybe we'll set this up. We'll do a comparison contrast about just really quick the small stuff, and making a small space is very different than making big space for a creative cycle. Saying that it's an exploration.
Mm-hmm.
When do you get to hire yourself as a tenured professor to do pure research with essentially attaching paintbrushes to a tentacle costume and running around a room full of paper, right? When do you get to that level? I don't know. Anyway, maybe that's a little extreme. But
that's how you sell something, though. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pure, like how the difference between the quick creative stuff and having a space for that versus the long stuff and navigating the.
Yeah, you're hitting me right where I'm living right now, Rob. So yeah, I have a feeling that we'll get into some heated places. And then then we'll talk about the 2-minute practice. But first, we got to thank some people who make this show possible. And those are the people who support us on Patreon. Patreon.com/LeanIntoArt is the website. What is it? It's a way for you to give us a monthly upvote. If you believe in Rob and Jerzy and what we make here at Lean Into Art, you can support us for as little as $1 a month. And you can even do a one-time contribution. You can say, like, hey, here's like a one-time, I want to support you, make your show more sustainable. I'm going to avail myself of the behind-the-scenes content, and then I'm going to just punch out at the end of the month. You can do that too. But I want to thank 5 people who have been supporting us on a regular, ongoing basis, because it means a lot to us. Becca Hilburn. Thank you, Becca. You can find Becca on socials everywhere at Netto Soup. And Stephen Black. You can find Stephen Black on Twitter at Black's Sideshow. Thank you, Stephen. And Chris Watkins, thank you, Chris. It means a lot to us. And Sarah Loutfi, or is it Loutfi? Sarah, please correct me on the pronunciation of that if you have a chance. Let me know how to say that, because we do appreciate your support. We appreciate you being a part of the Lean Into Art Discord. And Steven Stonebush, thank you, Steven. You could join them all at patreon.com/leanintoart, where you will find all the shows we make, as well as the extra leans, the shows we record only for people who support us on Patreon. Those posts become an open mic thread where you can talk about whatever you want in a safe space with fellow leaners. It also gets you access to the Lean Into Art Discord, and that's our forum. It's a way for you to engage with us, in a time-shifted manner with fellow leaners, and we have some Patreon-only sections there just for you. So patreon.com/leanintoart. Thanks, everybody. It means a lot to us.
It really does. Thank you so much.
All right, how about this, Rob, for our next section? Whoa.
Hey. Watch it.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, a little bit of a dueling noise to take us into this next section as we compare and contrast. So, what changes when you create for yourself and it's a longer creative cycle? I'll preface this by saying that one of the things that I've started work on, I haven't shared any of it yet, is that I am going to embark on another venture into doing my own thing and just publishing it online. And I've been playing with lots of ways to make it kind of manageable, because my time is very limited for my own personal pursuits right now. But the thing that is very difficult for me to align myself to, and this is evidenced by the different creative challenge seasons that I participated in, is where I'm always thinking about product development. I'm always thinking about making something that an audience will want, is how do I do this? If it's going to take me 2 years to do, how do I make sure that it's something I love doing and that I'm not doing it for performance's sake, right? Because this is something that came up a lot in the discussions over this past weekend at CXC, where a lot of authors are saying, you just got to make something that you want to make. Okay, that's great. I can't think about that without also considering what people are going to say when they see it, right? I can't think about it. It's difficult for me to disengage and say this is purely for me versus this is something that I want people to love too. Right. Yeah.
There's all of us will have quirks where it's almost, is it creative miles per gallon kind of thing that for me, the component that is about sort of learning and leveling up, I am too into that. And I have to.
You're like a Tesla at that point. You have a 400-mile range, and you don't even take any gas.
I'm way too into that. So I need to constrain the project. So in a way, I know, because of failing on big projects, that my own quirks, even though that there's exploration can get tuned, like I can make exploration be learning, and Ouroboros, that thing where woohoo, this thing's never stopping. and so, okay, I learned that, right? So at some point, projects have a lifespan and whatnot, and you can look back, and not always so easy to learn right away, but it takes time. Like the story I mentioned about having a decade-long disagreement with a friend. And so I think learning my own quirks that where I can commit to just enough of a specific enough outcome, where leaving space, like you were describing earlier on, where with the possibility of doing the development with the tree sketching, where it's not only and purely for an instinctual creative, action. There's a little more to it, but there's not too much to it, right? There's somewhere. And so for me, the arrangement involves looking at my own, quirks. Some may call them, Lucy Bellwood drew 100 creative demons, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think one with any of those feelings that needs you would need to tune it, because inherently you're setting off for something that has the potential to be bigger, right? So potential to be bigger, making a video game versus making like an interactive demo, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's lots of space in between. Making a like a 24-page comic versus making a mini comic versus making one like a comic strip, right? Each of these is different sizes of endeavor. So I don't know. Like, what do you think about the different sizes of endeavor and what to emphasize or what to watch out for?
Mm. Hmm. Hmm.
And it can be just all about this project that you're embarking on. Sounds like you're past the point of like, should I, right?
Right. So, okay. So what happened is I dropped. I felt this enormous relief when I dropped the whole shoulder pads post-apocalyptic armor of I got to get this thing published. Like there's something about me saying like, nope, let's not think about that. Just make the thing. And I was like, oh, I didn't realize how heavy that was. Wow, this feels really great. I could breathe. This is really nice. So there's that initial thrill of like, I could do whatever I want. But the moment I think about putting this out in the world, then like the invasive thoughts, is it invasive? They're coming from me, Rob. It's my thoughts. But you got to build an audience. You got to make the case. You got to build reputation so that people will want to buy it someday. Shake that off. Just do the thing that you want to do because this is what's going to nourish you and recharge you. That's why you're doing it. So I think I need to prepare myself for an ongoing sparring match with that voice, right? That voice is going to show up and knock on the door every morning. Hello? Anybody in there? Don't forget, it's all about reputation and building an audience. And I'm going to say, that's okay. That's nice. You go have a nice day someplace else because I'm going to be in here doing this thing because it nourishes me. There's something that feels like I'm protecting myself against the future when I come up with a plan for that. Right? Like, okay, I'm going to live stream every Monday and I'm going to talk with people about my project and I'm going to get out in front of this thing, which I will. But only for the pure practice of getting in front of things and celebrating what I love, right? So I think what I'm setting myself up for is for a constant reframing because I have a quirk in that I like to make plans and I like to build structures so that I ship a thing. I've proven I can ship a thing now. It's okay, Jerzy. Calm down, you know?
Product development principles are better than plans.
And explain.
So a plan, you can be optimizing your time and resources. You could have interviewed every creative demon you have and have factored them in. You've factored everything, all these variables. Look at you map and look at you go. Are you doing the right thing though? Right? Are you really building what problems are you solving? So a principle is easy to just pick up and say, am I doing the right thing? And you described, I didn't get them captured here, but like the essence of the meaning of this project and its effect on you, its effect on the world, the shape it should take, like things like maybe you can incorporating the audience things may fall into that, but it doesn't get too specific, right?
Right. The thing I described was I'm doing this because it's nourishing to me. It started with the motivation is I want to get paid to make something that really feels like my own vision of what is valuable in fiction, right? Not to say that this is the most valuable, this is my most valuable thing in fiction. And like, I've been going through like a little bit of that, like sort of processing who my target audience is, Rob. And like the really like the hyper specificity. And I just had a conversation with my friend the other morning about this. And I came up with kids who grow up in environments where they don't have a whole lot of familial support. Maybe their environment is toxic even, and there aren't very, very many grown-ups who are there for them to tell them, like to equip them for the dangers of adulthood, right? So like I'm winnowing in like, okay, and so you know what? If I'm making it for that person, if anybody else likes it, bonus. But I'm not making it for them. And it's okay that I'm not making it for them. I'm making it for this kid, you know?
Mm.
So like I guess that would go back to a principle. That's not a plan. That's an intent. Right?
It's a principle. Yes, exactly. And it's they're fantastic gauges to be like, boop, 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 like oh, this is bad. This
right.
I just almost added this to my plan. Right. I have the resources to do this thing, but the principle alert went off.
Yeah.
And that's all. Like they're really, really powerful things, and they can be hard in collaborations to come up with, but they can guide you individually on your on an endeavor. But I think they're as or more important too if you're working on something with someone else.
Yeah.
Because what's this for? Okay, this is we're doing this because we want to express the highest aesthetics we can related to fonts in comics. Great. All right. So we're going to invest probably a lot in making the font for this comic, or family of fonts or what have you. And it's just something you really believe in, and make a list of those things you really believe in that are important to incorporate.
Yep. And in the early days of A2CAF, when it was called Kids Read Comics, the organization's still called that, but the event's called A2CAF now. We were making it up as we went along, so we didn't have a plan. We were making a plan on the fly, and so we relied heavily on, well, what are our principles? What are our core beliefs? What's our success criteria based on our principles? Now we can evaluate whether or not these things, and so like things like having a conversation around, is it important that this thing gets 150,000 people to come to it, right? When you're making a festival, that's a natural conclusion to come to. Right, that it's a perfectly reasonable assumption that the more people, the better. And we had a really earnest conversation one year. I forget what year it was, where we said, like, you know what? If we had 150,000 people, then these things that happen at our show that are so meaningful and so supportive of our core principle wouldn't be possible. So maybe let's not focus our attention on building, huge foot traffic. Let's get good foot traffic, right, rather than enormous foot traffic. And that was an unintuitive arrival based on exploring our principles. So yeah, this is something I need to do in my artwork more than I have historically.
Well, and that's a really interesting thing you brought up. The scale of the impact of what you're making, and wow, is scale it's its own thing that shouldn't get invited to principles, right? Because the principles are more like, what does this mean for you? Like the things you really care about, and what do you want to how do you want to connect with the people who also care about this thing, right? Mm-hmm. Who do you want to include in this thing? Make that principle, that describes that. But then the scale, oh gosh, I've been just scale's red flag. Red flag. Watch out. Maybe necessary depending on your endeavor.
Maybe. But, yes. I love that. Scale is a red flag. Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm. I feel we're probably talking about the wrong thing if we're talking about scale, especially early on in a creative endeavor.
I feel like that's a word that's been largely poisoned in the last decade. Anyway,
swam in it. I know.
Yeah, I know you know. I'm looking at King Theoden over here, slumped in the chair. And I'm like, what about skill? Get out.
Yeah.
How about then? I do feel like we walked around the topic this time.
I think we did. Yeah.
Okay.
It's that's pretty interesting. Making things because you just feel like making them, and it gets you want to have a little bit of a support mechanism if you're going for something big, right?
Mm-hmm.
Scale is watch out, like, and in all directions. inside you and outside. If you're thinking of audience scale, if you're thinking of scale of the size of the thing, just remember to, even if it's big, make sure it's not too big. That it's a good thing to really, so you don't set yourself up for something that is not, that could have just built you up and been a good experience. But well, if you're setting yourself up for honestly unrealistic effort over an extremely long period of time and that kind of thing, just
yeah. Agreed.
I'm good.
Okay, good.
Yep.
All right. Well, how about we take one more break and then let's talk about the 2-minute practice for this month or this 2-week period. What say you?
I think that sounds great. Let's go there.
Okay. So we're going to come back in about a minute and a half to 2 minutes, and then we're going to talk about our 2-minute practice for this bi-weekly session. Before we do that, we've got to thank some more people who make the show possible. Those people happen to be us. We make the show possible. We make lots of things. We work hard at these things. We think hard about them, and we bring that thinking into this project we call Lean Into Art. And the thing that I make besides this project that I hope you will check out is the 4 Million Years Later podcast. That's at 4millionyearslater.com. Is it about paleontology? No, it's about cartoons. It is a deep analysis of the Generation 1 Transformers cartoon series, episode by episode, in story order. And it's really just me and my buddy Hoover, who I've been friends with for 25 years. We talked on the phone every week about Transformers for 25 years, and now we've decided to start documenting those conversations in a more thoughtful and mission-driven way, where it's really about celebrating the bizarre inconsistencies that come out of a commercial for toys written by a lot of different writers very rapidly, but then also looking at the deep, meaningful, and reciprocation of writers writing for children based on their love of stuff that excited them as children. Like that's largely an inference that I'm making. Like but I have spoken with some of the writers of these shows, and a lot of them, when they were writing these episodes, they were digging deep in their own childhood. Like, oh, I love Disney Zorro, so I brought that sort of some of these elements to this television series. So yeah, that's at 4millionyearslater.com. It's in podcatchers everywhere. I think if you enjoyed my intellectual tumbling, there's a lot more to be had there. We're already at 39 episodes.
It's super entertaining. You
Thanks.
Yeah, gotta subscribe to 4 Million Years Later. It's so fun. Both Jerzy and Hoover do some fun exploration and tumbling and analysis. Where if you're into storytelling, just give it a listen. Really nourishing.
Well, let's talk about what's in your store, Rob.
Right on. All right. So robstenzinger.com/store.html is where you're going to find easy access to the stuff I make and do. And I'm here to help you with creative process coaching. Made lots of things, failed a lot, analyzed a lot, studied, practiced, been taught. And I'm here to share that kind of stuff with you through, could be looking at what's your next project and choosing your creative career path, infusing user experience design and human-centered practices into your team and how do you design things, or maybe the whole system of product design and development through Product Practice Lab. So I've got a variety of those things. You can just reach out to me through the site to get started. I've also have some workshops just ready for you to stream. You can purchase on your own, or if you have the service Skillshare.com, this is like just sitting there waiting for you to go check out. Super awesome. Also, I have links to both ways to purchase these workshops right on robstenzinger.com/store.html. Two that I want to highlight: drawing user journey maps. It's super useful for getting a wider integrated perspective across different points of view about what happens to who you're trying to help over time with what you're making, right? There's a time before they see the thing that you make. There's a time in the beginning, and then things progress. What's that progression like? How are you being thoughtful about it? Drawing user journey maps helps you do that, and whether you're solo or on a team. And then it's that time of year, or maybe it's great any time of year, is to pick a creative challenge. Better yet, make that creative challenge your own. Make it work for you. What kind of outcomes do you want? Do you want it to be that creative playground? Or do you want to make a product and put it into the world and use the creative challenge as the workout mechanism to get you through that process? Well, customizing your next creative challenge is the workshop I made for you to make those creative challenges work for you. That's all at robstenzinger.com/store.html.
Awesome.
Check it out.
And then the last thing we hope that you will check out is the Lean Into Art Discord. We have a forum where you can talk with us in between episodes and comment on episodes as they're live streamed, and even do like social posting about things that are going on in your life, or sharing work with the Brain Trust in the Patreon only section. The invite link is in the show notes for this episode and every episode. So thanks to everybody who's been interacting with us there. It has been awesome to get to know more of you on a one-on-one basis in the Lean Into Art Discord. All right. 2-minute practice time. Yes?
2-minute practice time. Hey, Jerzy.
Hey, Rob.
Oh my gosh. It's been a few weeks since this practice prompt. And I know that this is all about the mechanism of making it like inexpensive on our time, on our emotions and our stress to just try, dabble, explore a new thing, right? So I would say in a way I probably did a few different practices, but the main one was this intentional thing that we set out to do last time, which, yeah, what did we set out to do, and how those couple of weeks transfer for you?
After looking at the practice before, we came to the conclusion that we needed to find for this round something that had little emotional cost, right? So we're talking about like time cost and emotion cost. That's we got to sort of like think about multiple kinds of costs when we practice something. And so we both observed that showing up to doodle something has very little emotional cost for us. So let's do something that involves drawing with lines. And I forget who came up with the idea, or I'm certain what happened was it was us playing ping pong with the idea. We came up with this idea of visualizing the quality of your day in lines. And this is, I can say for myself, at least in part, inspired by the fact that I have an emergent task planner, which, as a matter of fact, Rob, I was just talking about this. 8 years worth of ETPs that I was just talking about with friends. So a lot of my life captured in terms of quantity. Yeah, go ahead. What are you saying?
I would fill a backpack and make it kind of heavy. I mean, that's a lot.
This isn't all of them, but this is going back a few years.
It's not even all of them. Okay.
No, because I only in the last like 3 or 4 years switched to using these graph notepads, graph composition books, which you can get for like 50 cents a book at the beginning of every school year. Anyway,
that's a good tip.
Yeah, actually, I have 5 years worth of them that I got this last school year. So I'm set on that. But anyway, so I'm capturing like what I'm doing, and I have a space in my ETP to capture. It's called "What Good Happened." Like it's just a prompt for me to record. Did anything happen, or did I do anything that makes me say that's what good looks like? And I don't find myself making a lot of time to capture that qualitative data. Every once in a while I do, but not often. And especially when I'm under a lot of pressure, like I was this last 3 weeks leading up to Cartoon Crossroads Columbus 2020. So we came up with this idea of like, okay, what would be inexpensive? Doing something with lines. Let's capture the quality of our day. And so I did a number of practices with my. Oh, the other tool I have to point out is my multi-pen that I got at jetpens.com, and I love this thing to death. It's a refillable multi-pen. It is Uni Style Fit is what it's called. Anyway, so I was creating lines, but I was also using colors to sort of capture.
So I see. Yeah, it's greens and reds. Gosh, multiple layers. That's so awesome.
Yeah. So like in this case, the red was sort of like the path through the day directionality. Like, oh, I'm going forward sort of in waves. Oh, no, now I'm going backwards. And now I'm going forwards again, but there's a lot of pain when I'm going forward here. So
yeah, wow. You've got some really understandable. I mean, there's abstraction, but you have some symbols really working there that it's I would bet makes it easier to get some meaning out of that
Yeah.
that line, or, family of lines.
So
Wow.
I found myself like hitting the main idea very quickly. Like it took seconds to capture it. This is really what it felt like. So with 2 minutes on the clock, it actually invited me to sit with that for a little bit and think on it and process a little bit more than I would normally do. And then that's where the other layers of color came in. Like, so they became like this through line that was like the initial report. And then the ticking clock said, okay, now sit with that, think about it. What other layers would you add to it? What else was happening? And that's why I started layering the different colors on to show that procedure of thought for myself after the fact. How about you?
Wow. I mean, and there's not a lot of things that in 2 minutes you get to do, like multiple stages of creative effort. that's that's impressive. I ended up, let me do an experiment. Can you vamp for like 10 seconds?
Yeah, sure.
And
I'd be happy to. I can actually go through what this one was. If everybody's watching. So purple line indicated extrinsically motivated effort. Green line was intrinsically motivated effort. That contact point in the middle was where everything kind of got very, very hard. And the red lines indicate outside asks, outside forces, things coming in to the day that were part of things that make this an emergent task, right? Like I didn't plan on doing it, but I'm doing it. We've all had that, right? So, okay, it looks like Rob is setting up his whiteboard.
I am. I'm at my whiteboard.
Look at this, everybody. It's getting to be like a real TV show production here.
This is
camera 2.
Yeah, camera 2. Here I am. I'm at the yeah, this is what I ended up doing over the last couple weeks of the creative practice. 2 minutes for each of these lines, right?
Oh, so you did like a palimpsest where it's like it's all layered on top of itself.
Oh, wait. Where's that's a cool word. Help
me
out.
Let me make sure I got the pronunciation right. Define palimpsest. A palimpsest is in textual studies. A palimpsest is a manuscript page, either from a scroll or a book, from which the text has been scraped or washed off so that the page could be reused for another document. So you get a layering of information on a palimpsest.
Oh, that's pretty cool. It is a lot like that. Yep. Channeling. I wouldn't be surprised if I had an ancestor who was a scribe, but so each line would be just, typically in the evening, and so a couple of times early, early part of the day, maybe lunchtime, but I didn't keep a lot of track of this data. I just would do some exploring and do a line for that day and keep moving. And I knew I wanted that palimpsest effect, right? But didn't know that word existed. So I don't know if I like the collection of lines once I started to go other directions. So I did a few days, and I thought, oh, I've got some more days in me. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or 7 or so days here. But there's a little bit of like flow of effort, and when there was a little more mellowness or like less conflict to navigate, but then when there's conflict to navigate, it got more jagged. That's roughly the code in my visualization. Yeah, so, basically working from home, and kids doing school from home, and all that kind of stuff is looks like that.
And if I were to describe for people in audio, you can also find the video at Lean Into Art, episode 329 on YouTube. It's a cacophony of swirls that look like they're about to converge harmoniously, but then in come the jagged lines to overlay over top. Anybody who's watched the Dot and the Line animated cartoon from UPA Studios back in the 50s, right? The difference between the squiggle and the line. The squiggle is chaos, and there is a bunch of chaos converging on the center of that image.
Oh, yeah. So collectively, right. There's often there are portions of days in particular that were chaotic. And yes, like a roller coaster that could bring you in any direction at any time. But you know, it's it's I found this fun because the big paper, right? The big paper, I tend to put a little more oomph in the lines, and that's you know, when there's a lot going on in a day, maybe it's nice to have a little oomph in a creative project to take some I don't know, take some of that emotion and be like, let's put it somewhere.
Yeah, using more of your body when you draw that way too.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Well,
So
cool. Well, I would call this one a success in terms of experience. So what do you want to do for this next week, this next 2 weeks for our practice? Anybody who's watching live, you could chime in too. If you want to give us some things that you think would make a good practice this for the next 2 weeks. It could even be not a fully formed practice, but just like a type, like we tend to hover around physical things, doing something with our bodies, doing something with drawing, doing something with sound, and then doing something with writing. There you are. Hello, Rob.
Switching cameras is a little bit of effort, but
still, that was pretty smooth. So do you have any thoughts as to like where your gut is taking you for this next practice for the next 2 weeks?
I wonder if so doing low pressure things and then finding a pattern in the things keeps it low pressure. Having an expected pattern is where I think more pressure comes from.
Mm-hmm.
So if you know, if you know, leaning toward drawing type things, but then seeing what emerges. How about keep adding characters to a page and see what happens? It's like a chaotic sketchbook page of this thing and that thing and this thing and that thing, and they don't have to be set on a stage or in a scene or something like that, but it's the logic of your a school notebook that gets your doodle attention. But then eventually, over a few sessions, that thing becomes a collage of sketches.
Okay.
Are you sure? That's an idea. You could totally go somewhere else with this.
No, I mean that sounds fun. That sounds pleasant. It sounds like it's kind of tied into the theme of today's episode too. Loutfi is typing into the Discord, and I'm anticipating what it could be. It could be something that either like takes our dungeon crawl over to the different area you hinted at the top, or it could be something that we're like, okay, let's do that one next month. Yeah. Well, I think in the interest of wrapping the episode on time, let's okay. In the future, okay, this is what Loutfi saying is like, in the future for the next 2-minute practice, maybe creating color palettes from nature, from pictures. That's a cool one too.
That is a really good one.
Right.
I love making color palettes is a nice it can be low pressure, and that can be pretty fun.
It can be, unless you're it is fall, right? Like this is the time to be capturing lots of interesting colors. Sunset looks different right now. Sunrise looks different right now. We did do a 2-minute practice a while back where it was like just grabbing a photo of something that makes us go like, right? But this has like another added benefit of, it's like, okay, like let's take the photo and then just take 2 minutes to like grab like 6 colors off of it and see what we get. I kind of dig how that's kind of like a Story Cube's way of getting a color palette, you know?
Story cubes, like the dice?
Yeah, the dice. So, you know, when you throw the dice and it gives you a couple little prompts that are like utterly random to help like motivate you to like just run with the idea instead of like try to craft everything so carefully.
So yeah, I'm all for it. Like we can do the collecting color palettes.
Another thing I haven't done in like 6 weeks, Rob, that I'm really sad about is I haven't gone running in a long time, and I plan on starting again tonight. And this would be a good opportunity to go outside for the express purpose of grabbing a photo of colors that I see that are interesting and group 6 colors. Do 6 color palettes.
Yeah, it is a really good idea. I mean, it's a little bit of a combo project where it's like 2 different things that give you more incentive to do them both because they can connect.
Yeah. I that's the way I trick myself into doing things. So, and then how about we've got another practice already, like sort of in the hopper in terms of doodling in our sketchbooks. Because actually, this is another thing. I just had this conversation with some teachers. I'm going to start teaching I'm going to do like a visiting artist thing in January, and we were talking about like teaching different learning modalities. And I got to tell the story of when my high school sociology teacher, he meant very well, but he called my parents and said, "I need to talk to you about your son. He's going to be a criminal." And they're like, "Why?" He's like, "He's drawing Spider-Man all over his notes." Are his grades bad? No, they're fine, but I'm really worried about the Spider-Mans. So,
moral panics.
Yeah, but it's like that.
Just keep on giving.
But my yeah, that's true. But my notebooks did look like that. It was like covered in like little characters doing all sorts of things. Like most
that's
high school
classier than what I wrote on my notebooks. I was never like a body part drawing person, but like so many skulls, so many flaming things, and swords, flaming things, swords and skulls. That was all over. And then a weird penguin. But there's and that maybe the incongruence could have led a teacher to be suspicious. Like, what?
Good, Ben. All right, I think we got to practice. Let's see how this feels for us in 2 weeks. Enjoy your autumn, everybody, and grab some colors. All right. Well, unless you're in the southern hemisphere, then enjoy your spring and grab some colors. So,
right on. That's good to remember. And sometimes I'm always once in a while like a little bit jealous. Like they probably have a better inverse day than we have right now. I don't know, but either way, color palettes. It sounds like a lot of fun. Right. Looking forward to it. Thanks for the idea as well.
Yep.
S.
Louter on the Discord. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, Jerzy.
Thanks, Rob. And this is the part where I say we record the show weekly, usually on Thursdays at noon Eastern time, 11 a.m. Central. We stream it live all over the place and in the Lean Into Art Discord, and then collect it as a podcast at leanintoart.com and patreon.com/leanintoart. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out with us and chatting with us while we did this episode. And thanks to you, Rob, for the great discussion on drawing for ourselves. And
my pleasure. You, Jerzy.
And we'll see you next time. Until then, I have been Jerzy Drozd of leanintoart.com and Jerzy Drozd on Instagram.
And I'm Rob Stenzinger of leanintoart.com and Rob Stenzinger, places like Instagram.
Okay, bye.
Show notes for this episode can be found at leanintoart.com. You can also follow us on Twitter at the user leanintoart, and you can reach us via email at leanintoart@gmail.com. And remember, leaners aren't wieners. Thanks for listening.